I loved being that person. I loved being the person that was able to help, the person that listened. We did a lot of training, coaching, facilitation, and I just loved it. The more I did it, the more I was like, yeah, this is absolutely me. Do it all the time, be a coach and leader all the time, set that vision, be a visionary leader as well. Those two will set you right. But it just doesn't work because we get boxed in and then things start to feel inauthentic. There are things we can do to challenge back, challenge up, as well as support our team. Just very passionate about work-life blending. It's so empowering. It's not limiting. It's not that pursuit of perfection. It is just doing what you need to do when you need to do it. People are promoted based on technical capability, not on their desire to lead. Have a route for people to continue their career progression that doesn't take them into leadership and management, because it isn't right for everybody. Just be happy and be fulfilled, and know that when you get to 80, 90 years old, you look back with joy and not regret.
Hey, welcome to the Leaders Podcast with me, Laura MacDonald, the leadership coach and mentor. Come with me as I explore the elements of leadership that give leaders like you the power and confidence to make the impact you know you can. I'll be sharing my own experiences, top tips and insights, and talking to some very special guests to share their thoughts and leadership experiences on mindset, influence, change, and growth. So let's get right to it. I love the raw honesty of my next guest. I'm excited to welcome Emma Berry Cowling, executive coach, trainer and facilitator and owner of Excellence Executive. Welcome to the Leaders Podcast, Emma.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
No problem. Thank you so much for being here. But before we start, I've got an important question for you. When I started the podcast, one of the first messages I wanted to get across was how important it is for leaders to serve themselves so they can serve others better. And my guests have all shared some incredible ways they do that for themselves. So my question to you is, what have you done to serve yourself in the last 24 hours?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. And I love that. It's a real focus of mine at the moment, actually. I had a post last week about selfless being selfish. The last 24 hours, crikey. So what have I done? I've been a bit girly and I've painted my nails. And that, I know it probably sounds a little bit like, why is that time for you? But actually it's a time where I can kind of switch my brain off. It's like a subconscious thing. I'm not a girly girl, but it's a nice, easy. It's my toenails, by the way, not my fingernails. Can't do those. I'm not that efficient. But it means I can kind of completely switch off. Have the telly on. I'm a Married at First Sight fan. I love a little bit of rubbish TV because it helps me. I also just love studying their body language. There's a lot that they give away. Anyway. So I had the final where they had the reunion. I'm a little bit behind, always a bit behind on those shows. And I just was able to completely switch off, actually. Whereas I find myself quite often, because I'm very passionate about what I do, I'm logged on, I'm writing content or I'm sending messages. Whereas this just allowed me sort of 40 minutes to just completely switch off, indulge in my guilty pleasure. And also, make my toes not look awful as I'm going along thinking, oh, they look great. So that's what I've done in the last 24 hours. Yeah, 24 hours.
Amazing. Yeah, I have to admit, I'm a big math fan.
Great.
My wife
Absolutely love
gets
it.
really annoyed with me because I have to watch it like when it comes out.
Me too. The Australian one in particular. That's my favorite.
It's very, very interesting, isn't it? I don't know what it is about like the Australian versions of the shows because we started watching like Australian Lego Masters and stuff like that as well. And for some reason, it's just so much better than like any other country has managed to produce it. I'm
I
not sure
agree.
what's going on.
I think it's the directness. So, it's something that's true in the way I approach my business as well, is I'm a big fan of being direct, not beating around the bush, just saying what you mean, not offensively, not to create distress to anybody, but actually not silent disagreement. We get a lot of that. There's a lot of people holding back, and you can tell on other versions of these sorts of shows that the producers are having to prompt a lot behind the scenes to kind of unpick what people are thinking because they've got that guard up. Whereas Australian versions of shows and Australians in general, ones that I know that I've met, are very direct. They say what they're thinking, and there's no fluff. And I really love that. It's yeah.
My wife's brother-in-law, because he is Australian, and yeah, he definitely says it as it is. There's no holding back. If he doesn't want to do something, he'll tell you, you know. It's not a difficult conversation with him at all. I thought that liking maths and stuff like that was quite a, as you said, like a guilty pleasure. But actually, almost every coach that I've ever met has at some stage been completely enthralled by it. It's just a really interesting show to watch.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I'm wondering if it's not so much a guilty pleasure as more a collective secret among certain professions that we really like this stuff. So,
Exactly. It's human like behavior and stuff, isn't it? There's stuff going on as well as the absolute tosh.
mm,
Would you,
maybe
would,
that's part of the reason my wife stopped watching it with me, because at the very start, when they do sort of the hen and stag nights, I'd always go, that bloke's going to cheat. That girl's going to do this. She's like, how do you know?
but isn't it also beautiful how much people can surprise us? So, like in this series, I was very surprised by a couple of people, like Elliot, for example, to see how somebody can fundamentally shift so much. And also, there's clever editing going on. I get that. But from the initial impression, that's what we typically go on in the business world as anywhere else. And so we judge very quickly. Whereas actually, when we give people the opportunity to learn and grow and see where it is that they've got weaknesses or where it is that they could improve and their impact on other people, the opportunity for change is massive. And we're going very deep on maths, aren't we? But I think it's universally true. It's applicable to such a broader spectrum. Like
Mm.
I love it. I'm obsessed.
The most interesting couple for me actually was Dave and Jamie, because it did just massively flip on its head like overnight, didn't it? It was absolutely crazy, like how it all just went down.
Yeah,
But it was all just from one statement that she made that just brought up all this other stuff. And it was, yeah, it was shocking to see how it turned around. But at the same breath, I was the friendship and the kind of bond that they've developed is
yeah,
actually really lovely.
absolutely. And it's that emotional intelligence as well, isn't it? Because she was all wrapped up in this bubble, saying how she felt, and what she didn't acknowledge was how he felt, and he didn't acknowledge it either. But in his kind of presence, he was giving away a lot.
Mm.
It's that piece, body language is what, about 55% of the message we're trying to give, I think. It's There's a lot that's given away, and the more we become attuned to other people around us, it's something I'm focusing on with my eldest son at the moment, actually, is about that emotional intelligence, emotional regulation, and how we actually perceive the world around us and work on ourselves at the same time.
I think it highlighted the importance of paying attention to the feedback you get as well, because it was actually Jamie's sister that pointed out to her, wasn't it, that she gets wrapped up in relationships and doesn't necessarily recognize that the other person isn't where she is. And
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
was really important for her to just sort of take a step back and go, okay, maybe I need to question that. It's important to hear what other people think about your responses and how you're seen, as well as what you think about yourself and how you see yourself.
I completely agree. And the amount of assessments I've done with different leaders and teams, actually, when the leader reflects on the maturity of their team, the psychological safety of their team, the high performing, trajectory that they're on, typically when we have an optimistic view of the world, we think things are amazing, like Jamie, and we might fill out that survey or that assessment, think, yeah, my team is high performing. We are psychologically safe, I have high emotional intelligence. Whereas actually getting that feedback from people that are slightly removed, or even the people within the team, right? Getting those different perspectives, they're the things that shift it for us. And they're the things that kind of take the blinkers off. And it is, once you see it, you can't, put those blinkers back on, they've gone. See, real world application, maths.
Absolutely. The most important show you'll ever watch.
There we go. There we go. Perhaps we need like a maths podcast for leaders
Indeed.
and leadership.
Yeah, the UK following Australia. So you have over 20 years experience doing what you do, but obviously your job is only part of your journey. So who are you and how did you get to this place in your life?
Oh, crikey. That is a big question, isn't it? So who am I and how did I get here? I guess I'm from a very, very diverse family. My mum is one of 11 and my dad is one of 7. Yeah, I was trying to count my cousins and second cousins and things when I was growing up. I got past 80 and just lost count. It just got a bit ridiculous. We're never all in the same place at the same time. Like it just doesn't happen. Um, and coming from such a big family, my mum and dad went their separate ways when I was little, and then there was a stepdad who was terrible, and lots of terrible things went on. And so through all of that, I kind of started to actually sort of step into being an adult and coaching when I was a kid, which I know probably sounds really weird, but you step into that kind of, I don't know, awareness of the world. I'm hyper empathetic, and I think that's probably a defense mechanism. But I absorb how other people are feeling, and I always have. And for me, as I was growing up, I kind of was the person my friends would come to, and I loved being that person. I loved being the person that was able to help, the person that listened. I pride myself on being a good listener. And, as I went through my journey, it was a little bit turbulent as I was growing up. I went through a few different stages, as most of us do when we're teenagers, and so on and so forth. And I just sort of landed as I moved out of school in personal training and fitness instructing and helping people to improve themselves physically. But I had a little bit of drama at home with a little bit of a crazy ex, and I needed to escape for a little bit. So I went to not Australia, talking about Australia, aren't we? Went to America for a little while, and I worked with at-risk youth, and I was the waterfront director, counsellor, and really helped kids from sort of 5 to 18 work through some of the things that they've been through from being, inner city kids, real tough situations. And through doing that, I think that sort of helped me see that I wanted to do more and be more. And whilst I love the personal training, I love the social side. Actually, I felt like I've got more to offer, and so I moved into the corporate world, moved house, just sort of started again from scratch, and kind of started to navigate my way through the corporate space, helping people with their process improvements, helping with efficiency, helping with effectiveness, and really leaning into kind of how it is we can make a difference. And fundamentally, that started in the world of performance. So I'm actually like a black belt in operational excellence, which is lean, which is all about flow and helping remove all the waste, remove the stuff that creates all the noise. And I coached leaders, I coached my teams, I coached lots of directors and end-to-end process improvements. We did a lot of training, coaching, facilitation. And I just loved it. The more I did it, the more I was like, yeah, this is absolutely me. So I stepped into kind of the change world and became a change practitioner. And, everything we do is change, right? Absolutely everything you do. If they stop your brand of, I don't know, shower gel at the supermarket, we go through a change curve as much as if our entire organization restructures and our job doesn't exist anymore. They are both changes, they're just different scales change. And our natural resilience to those change kind of defines how we would approach it. And so I was fascinated with that and kind of stepped more into the change space whilst helping people through changes and navigating all of that. And then I kind of changed again, really. So when I had my first son back in 2018, one of those big life moments that we have at varying stages, I was living in Bucks and working in Warwickshire. And it's a fine commute, it's an hour each way for me, that's not too much. But when you've got a child, it suddenly is massive. And when they're sick or when something happens, you're like, oh my God, I've got to get back. It just becomes quite problematic, actually. And, you'll know, right, wrangling all the different logistics of childcare and nursery and all sorts. And typical day, we'd be out at 7:30 and pick him up at 6. But then there was a day a week where I would bundle him from his cot into the car in his like sleeping bag. We had a buckle safe one. And that would be at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'd drive him up to Warwick, would meet my dad in a Starbucks. I'd have his breakfast, Charlie, I should say his name. I have Charlie's breakfast in a little Tupperware pot. He'd sit in Starbucks, cry his little eyes out, and eat his breakfast with my dad, who, I'm a little bit estranged from, but, we try. And he would then go off and have a lovely day with his grandcha. And I would then go to work. I'd then finish work, drive an hour and a half to my dad's in Coventry, have dinner, which was nice opportunity to bond with my dad and my stepmom, and then drive all the way home and get home about 9 o'clock at night. And it was a few months of doing this where I was like, you know what, I just cannot anymore. It's too much. It's exhausting physically, mentally, emotionally. And I'm not getting, at the time I would talk about work-life balance. I don't talk about balance anymore. I talk about blend because balance is, you're never going to achieve it, right? But I just felt constantly stressed and constantly like criticized both by my internal voice, which I've worked on, but also by some of the peers around me and some of the more senior people. And, I was critiqued by a director because how could I possibly keep doing this week in, week out, regardless of my performance, right? He just didn't like what I was doing in terms of the commute and stuff. So I vowed then actually to go solo, and how things are, maternity leave is great. So I stayed for my second son, and I did love the corporate world I worked in. I stepped into a program that was a beautiful swan song towards the end of my career with these guys, where I ran transformation across operations for 500 odd people, 250 million pound program. It was brilliant. It was a really nice way to kind of spend my last year with the business. And COVID hit as well, and had my second son during COVID, which was traumatic, and then set up my own business, and I'm absolutely loving it. So I've been going about 2.5 years, and I finally have the work-life blend that I love. I'm able to like spend time with my children as well as actually work on things that I love, that are aligned to my values, and my business values are aligned, as well as, supporting my husband in what he does, because he's in Scotland this week. He's out and about quite a lot, and it just affords us the opportunity to blend things that actually work rather than just being constantly exhausted and working out who's picking up who, when, where, all of those stressful things that we went through.
Mm.
So that was quite a big journey. Sorry, Laura. I think I went a bit into detail there.
Don't worry, quite a lot of people do. Most
Glad.
people have got some sort of big story they need to tell, so it's okay. So we've been connected for a while now, and when I see your posts, I was thinking about this earlier. I always get this little intriguing feeling to see what you've written. Because because you say it as it is, you have a great sense of humor. Your analogies are relatable and simple, and we actually agree on a lot of things, including what made me reach out to you about doing this. And that was a post you wrote about many people saying or thinking that the coaching style is the best and that it's simply not true. So, why is it important that we don't pick out one leadership style as the best? Because there is a big difference between what's best for us and the team and what we think is the best one, isn't
Hmm,
there?
there is. I think a lot of people kind of find one that they love and stick to it, right? Find one that works, or fall into one is probably more appropriate. A lot of people talk about coaching being like the thing, the one that solves everything. Be a coach. If you're a coaching leader or a servant leader, oh, it's thrown about too much. But anyway, if you're a coaching leader, this is going to solve all of your problems. You're going to help your team through everything. And it's important not to get stuck in one kind of style, one kind of box, and actually work out which styles are relevant at the right point. Because I think I gave you an example before, didn't I, in terms of like if you're in a burning building, absolutely a coaching leader is not going to be the right one, because they're going to be like, well, what obstacles have we got? What can we think of? What are the ideas that we can think of to get over these hills, or get, through the fire? How can we stop this happening again? Which are all very valid questions. But in the moment when you are in that fire, you need that commanding leader to be like, right, fire exit, out you go. I'm going to count you in, count you out. Just do it. You need somebody that is that autocratic, gets you done, right? Whereas the coaching leader can come into play after the fact, and we can have that valuable conversation and learn and grow. There are times when it's relevant to be more commanding. There's time to be much more of a pace setting leader. You've got some targets to hit, And actually, you just need to get stuff done. That's the real world. We get all these theory, get all of these books that say, do it all the time, be a coach and leader all the time, set that vision, be a visionary leader as well. You know, those two will set you right. But it just doesn't work because we get boxed in and then things start to feel inauthentic when we try to do other things or lead in other ways that our team need us to do. I'm very much a fan of adaptive leadership and looking at the situation and working out what your team needs, but also what it is that you need and what you've got to give, because we can't give more than we've got. And quite often it feels alien to us to wear a different style, right? And quite often it is the commanding style. It either comes naturally or it doesn't. And it's one that's probably like 2% of the time to use, by the way. It's not one I would ever advocate people use for 100% of the time. But it's really important to get comfortable with all of the styles so that you can make them authentically yours. Work out what language you would use that is you, that doesn't feel like you're being somebody else. So then you naturally can step into those roles when you need to. And it's a case of your team knowing who you are and that you are authentic and they can trust you. They're psychologically safe, they're physically safe with you kind of at the helm leading them. That's my kind of soapbox of coaching. I love it. Don't get me wrong, right? I am a coach. I advocate coaching leadership. It's just not 100% of the time.
What you've referred to there is Goleman's model of six
Mhm,
styles.
mhm.
Um, the biggest thing that I always highlight when I explain this to anybody is that it is about finding how to use every single style, that every single style has its place, and there's a reason that there are six.
Yeah,
If there was one good one, there would just be one,
yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
And that's, yeah, it's really important to note, isn't it? Because there are points where you do need to step into that commanding leadership and just lead somebody through crisis or lead your team through crisis. And that could be that the building is on fire, or it could be that actually, oh dear, we've just had a client call us with an absolute disaster and we have to fix it. I actually had this with one of my clients a few weeks ago. It had to be the case of, well, yes, okay, there's a little bit of discussion, there's a little bit of democratic coming in there because we need the expertise in the room to understand how best to fix it. But once the plan is agreed, commanding all the way because they need this fixed now.
Yeah,
Yes, you need to get comfortable with all six. That doesn't mean that it's an equal balance. It's not an even spread across the board, but you do need to be comfortable with all of them to find your voice.
yes. Yeah,
Mm.
and still be you without it feeling jarring. Like a lot of leaders that I've supported have gone into a kind of leadership position and they've actually stepped into the affiliative one because they're like, well, I don't want to be, I don't want to be a boss. I don't want to be like bossy. I don't want to be controlling. I just want to be everybody's friend. And they're so laid back that unfortunately the team then doesn't understand the boundaries. They don't know where the expectations lie. And so they then start to get walked over and then they'll jump from affiliative because they've been so laid back to commanding. And I see a lot of leaders kind of between the two, affiliative and commanding, and getting stuck because they're like, well, I'm trying everything. I'm being everybody's friend and they're not doing what we need to do. So then I'm telling them what to do. And then they're getting frustrated with me because I'm being too bossy. Whereas actually, as you say, the six styles, like creating that resonant leadership is so powerful. And making sure, I guess the only one we've not mentioned is the democratic leadership, right? And for the people pleasers, this is a space to get stuck. So making sure that actually you are doing what your team needs you to do to make that progress, to achieve the performance, and focus on being an effective team before you're an efficient one. So focusing on the right things instead of getting stuff right first.
I started in hospitality, which is a business designed to be quick, be efficient, as high turnover as possible, especially the company I worked in. So pace setting leadership is really important because you have to keep up. It's that simple. If you don't keep up and a Japanese tour bus shows up outside, you're screwed. So pace setting is really, really important and everybody has to be efficient and everything. There's that old saying of like time is money. That's absolutely true when it comes to morning prep and close down at the end of the day. So pace setting is so, so important. But when everything becomes about efficiency, and especially when business targets keep going up and up and up, and you're asked to do more and more with less and less time, it's very, very easy to get stuck in pace setting and just start telling people what to do. It's
Yeah.
very easy to just say, well, I'm working at this pace, you should be too. And it's like, well, actually, do you need to just stop for a minute and go back to democratic leadership for a mo and
Yeah.
just throw it out there? Because we don't always allow that space. Eventually, we cut out the asking other people what they think bit just simply because, well, I don't have time for that.
Yeah, we stop treating people as humans. And when that mandate is coming from on high, how do you create that space? And there are times when we're in that constant churn, but what I've said to leaders that I've worked with before, you're in a period of heightened stress, heightened turnover, heightened whatever the case may be for them. Actually, let's look back on the last year and work out, when do you have time to breathe, and plan that time to do your improvements, to do your development. Because we work in the real world, right? When it's not idealistic, we're not saying you can just cram 10 extra hours into your day. Actually step back and look at when to plan this in and then do it. So actually develop the leadership you need. Also look at your processes, make them more efficient. And then you can also start to look at your resources and align them effectively. Understanding people's motivations, their strengths, and fundamentally what they might never be good at, because we can't all be good at everything. Like, that's a big, big thing for me on leaders, is not pushing our people to be everything to everybody, because they can't. You'll break people.
So I had a group coaching group last year, and they all took the Goldman's assessment to see the scores in all the different leadership styles. And we mapped them out on the board. And one of them, her top score was commanding leadership. She looked gutted.
Oh,
She looked absolutely gutted. And I was like, why do you seem disappointed by this? And she's like, oh, because it's like, am I bossy?
oh,
And she'd immediately got this impression that was a bad thing to be.
yeah,
But then I said to her, well, look at the other scores on the board. And I was like, there's actually quite a lot of people that are really not good or really not comfortable with that leadership style, but it's needed.
yeah,
And when it's needed, you're the person they call.
absolutely. It's recognizing those strengths, isn't it? And that's the thing that can change your entire perspective on what you do for a living. Is these things that I thought were weaknesses or negatives about me, actually they're the things that add value. And this is where I'm a hot candidate. So yeah,
Mm,
it's massively important. It shapes how you see the world, I think, when you start to see what you add rather than what's weak about you.
yeah,
I think it's massive.
it's game changing. You touched on servant leadership earlier. My first episode on this podcast was all about servant leadership. That's me. But I don't necessarily see it as not, I mean, it is a style you can learn and it is one that you can fall into, especially if you've got a good example above you. But I think it's a lot of the time just part of somebody's personality. Okay, they're not leading until they actually lead,
Mhm.
but the servant bit is naturally there. And it's important to recognize like when that is part of your character as well, because that's not necessarily something you choose to be,
Mhm.
but the messaging you get around that is really important as well. So that episode was all about, it's that constant message, isn't it? You put other people first, you put other people first, you put everybody first, you put everybody first, and eventually that leads to the complete exclusion of you serving
Mhm.
your own needs. And that was what I worked to change. It's important to recognize where certain styles actually really align with your personality and address not just the strengths, but the potential pitfalls
Yeah.
of being that way naturally inclined, just purely for the fact that the last thing you want to do is damage yourself in the process.
Mhm. Absolutely. And you also don't want to use this. I see a lot of people use their styles or their preferences almost as like a badge of honor and an excuse for not doing other things. And actually, like you say, we can spend a good amount of time working out how we can mitigate the pitfalls, how we can work out what our blind spots are, use the strengths and use the things we're naturally energized by to our advantage, but also be aware of other areas and stop excusing perhaps poor behavior as it's just part of who I am. actually there are things we can do and there are people that can help.
We have to recognize what's not sustainable for us as well. You know, most of what hit me as a servant leader held me through my 20s, but absolutely would not have survived through my 30s. I
Mm.
wouldn't have survived through my 30s by
How come?
continuing to do what I did because it was exhausting.
Mm.
It just, when it gets to the point that you do more and more and even more and even more, and that includes hours, the energy you put into other people, the time you spend thinking about work, your team, your tasks that you've got to do, the volume of stuff that you keep taking on in the
Mhm.
hope of seeming useful to other people. There's a limit, there's a ceiling. It's the reason for the question I asked you at the start of this recording. You do need to focus on you. If you're, as you say, put your own oxygen mask on first. If you're not doing that, well, what good are you to other people? And
Mhm.
sometimes it takes years of going through that, oh dear, I'm giving myself everything of myself to other people to
Yeah,
realize that actually you need to change.
absolutely. And I think a lot of people convince themselves they enjoy it. So that firefighting state that I'm doing everything for everybody, I'm doing all the things. People are coming to me with problems, I've got the solutions. Like people convince themselves. One of my clients last year that I worked with, he really did this to the point that he burned out. And it's sad to see because I've known him for quite a few years and actually you could see over the years him building this. I love to firefight. I love to be in that environment. And no matter what conversation we'd had over those years, we didn't work directly together, but sort of in parallels, it just kept going and kept going to the point where, you don't have 30 hours in a day. It doesn't work. And fortunately, we've worked through that now, and he's able to see that, that perhaps he didn't enjoy the firefighting quite as much as he thought he did. But it's not until you see it, is it, that you realise just how long you've been going this way and how perhaps close to burnout you are, which is another overused phrase. It's a really serious matter, burnout, and it, yeah,
Mm.
breaks
Makes a
people.
huge difference. So you've mentioned it already, but I watched you on a LinkedIn Live event last year where you used the phrase work-life blend or time
I
blend. So most people, as you said earlier, refer to this as a work-life balance. So what prompted you to start using the word blend as the descriptive word?
Well, I think for years I was searching out this work-life balance, particularly when I became a parent, and I just never got it right. And I was so frustrated. I felt like I was making mistakes, getting stuff wrong. Corporate things would come out, team talks, all those things. Get your work-life balance. We pride ourselves. There's questions in the survey. Yeah, we're smashing it on work-life balance. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And I saw an article actually, literally this morning, talking about work-life balance being 3 times more important than pay. Like that's what people are realizing. It's not work-life balance, it's work-life blend. And the change came for me when I was thinking about why I was so stressed and so frustrated because I'm trying to hold everything in tension. I'm trying to get exactly my work and exactly my life, balanced to perfection. And that doesn't work. Firstly, there's not two dimensions, it's not just work and not just life. Actually, your life is everything, it should encompass everything. And so I've heard some people talk about sort of work-life integration, which makes sense, but again, it feels like you're sort of wedging something in to something else rather than actually making it a bit more natural. And work-life blending just kind of came to me as a natural evolution of how I think about my time. And so for me, I'm a GCologist, so it's the game changing index, and this is where we focus on strengths and energy. And there's only 5 different proclivities. It's an organometric instead of a psychometric, so it's actually very valuable, aligns to business process. And what I started to realize was when I was looking at my time, I'm not spending my time on the things that light me up, that energize me, that are my natural strengths when I think about my GC index. And before I actually got to the point of work-life blending, I also stumbled across something called chronotypes. Chronotypes is a really fascinating concept, and it's all about your circadian rhythm and how you naturally find energy. We talk about night owls and morning larks or early birds, but actually there's 4 different chronotypes. And when we naturally get our energy peaks and troughs throughout the day, and when we naturally would wake up, when we would go to sleep, And what I realized through a very quick free assessment, actually, nothing to do with me, it's Sleep Doctor, different website. I've realized that I was trying to force myself to play in the space of not my GC strengths and not my chronotypes. And so that was why I was drained. Everything was sucking the life out of me. And I was just like, you know what, these two things are phenomenal. And pulling them together, actually, I now plan my time based on my energy, based on my strengths. I do it most of the time. I can't do it 100% of the time, nor can anybody, right? But what I do is when I'm doing something that doesn't fully align with my natural strengths, like accounts, right? I'm terrible at doing accounts. I'm not great at the detail. I'm not that sort of a person. It doesn't work for me. Routine doesn't work for me. I like different ways of doing things. So when I need to do that, because I fully accept I do need to do that occasionally, sorry, Samantha. Um, Actually, I plan some time after that, literally within the same day or within the same week, where I can really spend some time in my natural strengths and the things that light me up, and at the right time of day, aligned to my chronotypes. So I've got like a low energy list of different bits of admin, bits and bobs that I do when I'm naturally going through like a low period. And as I start to come out of that low period, which for me is sort of 1 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, is a real big one, I then know to plan like conversations with people because I'm a big extrovert. I love people. Um, Plan conversations, plan brainstorming sessions, plan strategy things, anything that gets that kind of energy going to bring me back and keep me going. I actually will keep going right late into the night, if I'm allowed to, but school pickups and things. So for me, it's about bringing all of that plus, all the different capabilities and things together in a beautiful blend that's wonderfully flexible and isn't rigid and isn't one size fits all. And yeah, I'm just very passionate about work-life blending. It's so empowering. It's not limiting. It's not that pursuit of perfection. It is just doing what you need to do when you need to do it.
And I have to say, I think I really reevaluated how I'd seen work-life balance and started talking about work-life blend after I heard you say that, because I realised it wasn't the same either. Because, I mean, for the most part, me and my wife have been able to work out routines or ways of doing things that have worked for us for years before the next time we need to change them. But when we had our son, things changed constantly because he changed constantly. So whatever our routine is now, we've probably had 25 versions of that. It was just a constant way to find a blend of stuff rather than trying to treat it like a balancing act. And especially with me running my business and working from home and everything else, it was quite difficult to work out that blend because, thinking when there's a screaming baby downstairs is really hard. But working all of that out and creating that blend
Mhm.
rather than a balance
Yeah.
was actually what saw us through. And I was like, yeah. So when you use that language and I heard it for the first time, I was like, yeah, actually, that's a much better description.
There's so much around language and just some of the words, just a slight tweak in what we use completely reframes how we see things. And yeah, like what you said, I perceive balance. When someone says to me work-life balance, I immediately think of two things. I think of a seesaw and either both things kind of hovering in perpetual, oh, are we ever going to come back to the ground or are we ever going to go up, And I think of the plate spinning, right? It's the visual that sticks in my mind. I'm a very visual person. And all I can think of is plates are smashing. The moment you're starting to try and balance everything, stuff is getting smashed. Whereas blending, like you say, it evolves over time, things change, it grows with you. You just need to be intentional, set boundaries, and be clear about what you need and understand yourself first. That's the main thing. Stop giving everything away and leaving yourself to last because you just won't, nothing fits that time jar, right? You're a big rock, you should be in that jar first.
I mean, the other thing that came up for me as well was the term work life, as if they're two separate things.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, it was like, well, no, life encompasses everything, including work. Work is part of life. So, yeah, I did start talking about that more as well, because I just thought, actually, how often do we see our work as completely separate,
Mm. It's
a whole
jarring
other
to,
entity?
to compartmentalize who you are as a person. There's definitely appropriate things to say and to share and levels of communication with various people. But I don't believe you should be a fundamentally different person when you step into different things. It's like you're wearing somebody else's skin. You should be you as much as you humanly can. Always respond, never react. It's a principle I live my life by as much as possible. We all get a bit stressed from time to time, particularly when there's kids involved. But be authentically you. And then you just sleep much easier at night. Like, it's one of our fundamental needs is to be able to sleep. And if you're constantly being different people, not feeling like you were yourself today, it's really hard to sleep.
And it's unsustainable.
Mm,
You've mentioned a few times as well that the first thing you do is help clients free up their time before anything else. Because if you don't have the time, then you can't make change, right? So,
absolutely.
yeah, I'm sure we're not the only coaches out there to hear some of these comebacks. Like, there's just too much to do. There's no other choice. I have to get it done, and so on. But what impact do those kinds of messages have on us? And what do we need to realize to really move forward in creating a blend?
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? They're the things we've told ourselves for years. So it's not necessarily a solution that we're going to solve overnight. And I think the biggest thing for me is when we keep doing what we've always done, we will always get what we've always got. It's a fundamental truth. And I know people have probably heard it and said it loads of times and then continue to do what it is that they've always done. Whereas actually, like I said earlier, taking that time out when you do have time or fundamentally looking at your time differently. So rather than say, I've got too many things to do, actually start to prioritize what are the things that you could take off that list. Maybe have a look at the world around you and who it is that could take a few things off that list, just to give you 10 minutes breathing space, right? And start with that. So when I work with my clients that say they don't have time, I'm not asking for hours and hours to begin with. What I suggest is they make some small changes, because what you do when you start to introduce a couple of minutes, 10 minutes, introduce a success sandwich into your day, for example. I've just said that as if it's like a common thing. So gratitude, common language, a success
Yeah,
sandwich.
it's easy to forget other people don't know this stuff, but like,
But focusing on that gratitude, right? So praising ourselves first thing in the morning. I'll just explain it quickly. First thing in the morning, talking about the thing that we did yesterday that we're proud of ourselves for, particularly if you're introducing a new habit. Then setting an intention for the day for maybe a new habit or something you're going to do, or maybe giving yourself permission to go for a 10-minute walk because it's going to give you some energy, right? Even if you do a meeting at the same time, whatever the case may be. Then physically ticking that item off the list to give yourself that little dopamine hit when you get through the day. And then right at the end, you're going to celebrate. You don't have to pull out all the bells and whistles, just an internal, I'm really proud of myself for doing whatever it was today. Doing things like that, introducing that 2 minutes across your whole day starts to rewire your brain to focus on the positive, focus on the opportunity, and you'll start to see more. And so we can then gradually start to increase it, right? There's lots of different ways that I help people find time from the outset. There's lots of different tools and techniques that I use from a sort of lean operational excellence background. We look for wastes, we look for things where there's rework, where there's defects, where there's things that are not quite right. And we shorten meetings immediately from an hour to 45 minutes. That's a game changer just on its own, right? Suddenly we are more impactful with our time because we've got less of it. But by focusing on those quick wins, we can then do some of the bigger stuff and have the bigger change. Like it won't change if you don't invest time in it. That's the fundamental message, right? But you have to get the time first. So in conjunction with those time components that I work with my clients, I also work on boundaries. And it's one of the most uncomfortable things for every single leader I've worked with. There is no single leader that I've ever covered boundaries with that says, oh, I really love doing this. This was really easy. But it is the first thing to give you so much more freedom and empowerment, because when we look at boundaries, when you define your values and the things that motivate you and drive you, those two things then enable you to give yourself permission, because we do need to give ourselves permission to look at the world differently and structure our time differently. But without that, we kind of are just saying, well, I'm just going to shave 15 minutes off a meeting. And those minutes, what happens? They get consumed elsewhere. Whereas when you do that in conjunction with a couple of mindset things, suddenly your priorities shift. And then it starts to infiltrate everything that you do, and your decisions are easier because you're like, well, that's not aligned with my values, that's not aligned with my boundaries. And you know what? I'm going to do this because this is what I'm passionate about. And it's those sorts of shifts over time that make the biggest difference for my clients, particularly as they go through the program that I offer for leaders, right? So we start with mindset and time because that has the biggest reward later on. If I threw loads of leadership, technical competence at them first, yeah, they might have a few more tools in the toolbox, but they won't know why they're doing anything and they won't care about it. It's about making the difference with the things that are most important to you and doing that deep work, which is uncomfortable, totally is, but that means it's worthwhile.
Eat the frog, as they say.
Oh, absolutely. Eat the frog. Be the biggest, ugliest, juiciest frog you can find.
100%. I mean, it's a big thing I've always found is actually how much action people don't realize they can take as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's always a big thing. So, for example, so I do like training groups for certain qualifications sometimes. And whenever I start a group like that, I always say to them things like, if you're going to do, for example, like if there's a group that can meet up between workshops and talk through what's in the assignments and all this sort of stuff, and they can just do a bit of back and forth and have some actual space and time to sit and write stuff, I'd be like, book all of those days in now.
Yes.
The course lasts for a year, so book all of those days in now.
Yeah.
And they're like, what now? Yeah, now. You know, but sometimes little changes as well. So like if you are constantly missing your lunch break,
Mm-hmm.
why is that not blocked out in your diary every day? Why is it possible that somebody can book in a meeting over your lunchtime? It shouldn't be. But
Oh, yeah.
it's about ownership and realizing actually, yeah, I can take action. What can I do? And focusing on what can I do, you
Yeah.
know.
It's one of the most empowering questions is actually to flip it and say, what can I do? Like we talked about eating the frog. I talk a lot about eating the elephant as well, right? Just eating all these animals, which is terrible, isn't it? But everything feels so big. Everything seems like such a monumental problem. And, there's red tape, bureaucracy. We are done to by everybody else. But actually, we don't need to eat the entire elephant. We just need to carve out a small piece. And those small changes add up to a big reward, right? 1% improvement every day. It's about 37% over the course of a year. That's phenomenal. That's over a third improvement. And we don't realize that small action can have such big results. So absolutely with meetings, there's loads. We can set an agenda, set objectives. That helps us. There are things we can do to challenge back, challenge up, as well as support our team. I think people forget, oh, we can challenge up. Don't be scared of any sort of hierarchy. I know it exists. I've been in it, faced it, but by small seeds, you can change the culture of a business. It's about you aligning to you and also knowing what's within your control rather than just saying that everything isn't.
I actually attended a webinar through Institute of Leadership a few months ago. And the guest that was on, is a consultant whose job he's literally hired to come and run people's meetings. That's
No.
his whole job.
Yeah.
And some of the tips he gave, it's stuff that I've said before anyway, but he just kind of put it in a more structured fashion, I think, was just simple things like you can have an 8-minute meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because when you book it into Outlook, it only comes up with like 15-minute time frames
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you can't actually physically type in an 8-minute meeting. You don't realize how much is actually in your control.
Yeah. Well, it's the post-COVID culture as well, isn't it? It's the fact of people used to bump into each other in the hall and have a quick conversation and make a decision, whereas now everything has to be scheduled into the diary. So instead of a 2-minute chat, it's half hour because nobody uses those 15-minute slots. It's everything scheduled, and suddenly nobody's got any time, and people are padding these meetings out as well. Whereas actually, yes, the soft stuff's important. Yes, we want to know how your weekend was. Not every single meeting of every single day, though, because we've probably heard it come Tuesday at 8 o'clock.
A big part of our conversation leading up to this was around leadership impact and authenticity. Obviously, we've spoken a bit about that already, but what is it that we need to understand about those things, particularly before we step into leadership roles?
Hmm. I think before you step in is such a powerful place to be because a lot of people find themselves in a position and then suddenly they're swimming out of their depth and it's the frantically paddling underneath or trying to be graceful on top. before you step in, I would say to do the deep work, right? Work out who you are, what motivates you, what drives you, what you're good at, where your natural strengths are, and, where is it you want to take the team moving forwards? I know we talk usually when somebody steps into a new role, particularly in leadership, you've got your 90-day plan, you've got everything set out. These are the things I'm going to achieve in my first 3 months. They're probably going to be target based, maybe KPI based. I would put money on there not being very many people things in there. There's also not many people things we can change within 90 days. Putting those foundations in and knowing what it is you want to achieve for yourself as well as for the team is fundamentally important. And it will keep you aligned with your authenticity as well by knowing your boundaries, knowing your values, and keeping that alignment throughout, right? I'd also say, in terms of developing your technical leadership capability, some of it you will find out as you go, but being mindful of the fact that there are different ways to do things and upskilling yourself on the different leadership styles. So Goleman's resonant leadership, absolutely, I'm a big advocate of that. Those 6 styles that I'm passionate about. But also focusing on psychological safety, burnout, emotional intelligence, making sure you understand the difference between assertiveness and arrogance, and not stepping from selfishness into selflessness or vice versa. Because what I have seen many, many times before is people being in a position where they feel like they're so selfless, any act of not being selfless is going to be deemed selfish. And actually, we need to sort of flip the script. And selfish shouldn't necessarily be such a negative word. Putting yourself first and having some of that selfish nature means you define your values. It means you set your boundaries. It means that you put the things first that are most important to you. And having that clarity means that your team will fundamentally know where they're headed, how to get there, and that you are completely transparent in what it is you're there to achieve. You're not there to dictate to them, you're not there to undermine them, you are there to empower them, and you'll deliver through them. So yeah, I would say the first thing to do is the deep work with your personal side of things, which I know is uncomfortable. Set your time. So like you said earlier, yes, we might not be able to change our time immediately, but if you're not going to start this role for 3 months, or even if you're already in it, look at your calendar. It will start to alleviate a couple of months into the distance. Set your diary then, set your lunch breaks, set your breaks, set your start and end times. Look at your energy throughout the day through your chronotypes and work out when's the right time for what sort of activity, and block it now. Because if you don't do it now, you'll get there and be frustrated because you'll have lost another quarter of a year before you can make any change for the longer term.
Absolutely. And when we also spoke about people actually wanting to lead other people,
Yeah.
that was an important conversation I've had with a few clients, to be honest. But one particular client always stands out to me because so he was part of a training group for a qualification, and we got to the meeting, the one-to-one meeting between workshops, and I said, how are you going? And he was like, oh yeah, it's just a really busy time, it's really busy this, really busy that, no, 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 no. And he carried on and on and on, and I was like, okay, do you see it getting like easier anytime soon? Oh yeah, yeah, it's nearly over. It's yeah, it'll get easier soon, definitely. I said, how long has it been this way? He said 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
But I've said time and time again, when you get your first sort of promotion into leadership, it's not a promotion at all, it's a career change.
Mm-hmm.
And it's how important is it to be honest with yourself about whether you're actually prepared to lead, not manage. Anybody can learn to manage,
Mm-hmm.
but to really put your heart into leading people.
I've seen it so many times. It's people are promoted based on technical capability, not on their desire to lead or even their desire to manage. And it's if I could implore businesses to do something with that, it would be to have a route for people to continue their career progression that doesn't take them into leadership and management, because it isn't right for everybody. Sometimes people don't know that it's not right for them until they've done it, right? We've sort of wore the shoes for a little while. They're not quite comfy. We need to slip back into our I want to say loafers, but I've never worn loafers. Anyway, um, so for businesses to do that would be phenomenal. And I think honesty, we talk about being honest as leaders with your people. We should be honest with ourselves and work out, is this for me? Am I passionate about leading a team? Am I passionate even about managing them sometimes, right? Because managers have got a space too, and not everybody wants or is a good manager. And yes, we can learn the technical capability. Leadership, I think you can learn to be a good leader. It's the question, I know you didn't ask this question, but you made me think about the question that I posed to myself a few times, which is, you know, are leaders born or are they made? And I think fundamentally, most people can learn to be a great leader. They can learn. It's whether they want to learn, whether that is the right path for them, and also whether they're willing to do that introspective, to look at what drives them, what motivates them, and really develop themselves into a really strong, flexible leader rather than just kind of, right, well, we're just going to go on this direction. I'm going to take you over here. We're going to go through this. Putting yourself first as a leader is like that first step on that leadership journey, in my humble opinion.
What do you hope will be the impact you've made?
Oh, oh, this is going to sound really noddy, but I just hope people are happy. Like, genuinely, I talk about work-life blend, and that I'm so passionate about people finding what it is they love, what it is they enjoy in whatever they do, doing more of it, getting time with the people that they love. You know, that could be anyone for anyone, right? It can be your friends, it could be your family, it could be your like exercise group, whatever your group is, you spend the time that you want to with the time you with the people or with the things or doing the things, doing your hobbies, whatever the case may be, just be happy and be fulfilled and know that when you get to 80, 90 years old, you look back with joy and not regret. I don't believe in regrets. I fundamentally have removed them from my entire being. And I think everybody else should do the same and focus on being happy and then enabling and empowering those around you to be happy. That's probably a big thing to have set myself, isn't it? That's the impact I want to make, but that's my goal.
I know, like some people say, oh, don't focus on happiness, focus on, content or anything like that. But actually, there's nothing wrong with just embracing the joy in your life, is there?
No.
Why can't we focus on making ourselves and other people happy?
Hmm.
You know, so
Yeah,
yeah.
and it can scale up or scale down, right? We can be happy in a moment or happy for a lifetime. Like it's content is nice. Content, I don't content feels almost lazier to me. I feel like happy is more active. Like content isn't, yeah, I'm content. Whereas
Mm.
happy, it's a language thing, I think for me. I prefer happy. I'm some people might prefer content, but yeah, happiness and joy. Looking around you, thinking I'm happy, I'm joyful, I'm
Mm.
glad.
Emma, your enthusiasm and passion for what you do is clear for anyone to see. You've built an incredible business, and your experiences and insights are helping a lot of leaders make better choices and get real about leadership. If anyone listening wants to find you, where can they connect with you?
Thank you, Laura. It's lovely. And yeah, anyone listening can find me. I'm Emma Berry Cowling on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only Emma Berry Cowling there. And my website is excellenceexecutive.co.uk. So just drop your details in or drop me an email, emma@excellenceexecutive.co.uk. And I would love to have a chat. I don't do sales. I'm not into sales. I'm into helping people be happy. So drop me a message and yeah, I'd love to help you be happy.
I will put all the links that you've just mentioned into the description for this episode as well. So if anybody wants to get in touch with Emma, please click on one of those. It's been fantastic to talk to you today, Emma. The more I heard from you, the more in agreement I think we were. And I wanted to get you on today because I knew you'd have the honest conversation that we all need in leadership, to know we're not alone in this experience and that we can create a ripple effect that has the potential to go far beyond our teams. I hope you've enjoyed being a guest here today.
I've absolutely loved it. Thank you so much for having me on, Laura. It's been my absolute pleasure.
You're most welcome. It's been an insightful and empowering conversation. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me. I look forward to hearing it, seeing it, and speaking more.
Until next time, everyone.